Hey, starting a new piece. I think this is what they used to call a cigar cupboard. Um, the research I found on it. But anyway, I already scrubbed it down. Now I took Hurricane Gray paint. I'm going to put sea spray because I'm going to use a texture on this. So this is going to be a whole different technique of a paint finish that I'm going to use on this one. So you'll mix your sea spray with your paint and always add a little at a time because you can always add more but you can't take it out. Also, I always use, anytime I'm using the sea spray, I always use an old chippy brush because the sea spray is hard on brushes, so I never use it on my new brushes or my good brushes or my favorite brushes. So I want to get it to the texture for me to put it on. I feel like I don't want to keep running the video because I feel like it's wasted time, like for you to sit there and watch would get boring. I don't know. Somebody has to tell me if you're supposed to let it record the whole time you're doing it or you just do it in steps like I've been. So anyway, once I get this, I don't want it running off I don't want it to run off my stick. I want it to sort of like brownie batter or I guess peanut butter, a little, I don't know. Yeah, it's getting a little better. And this does set up fast. The sea spray does make it set up and dry fast. So sometimes I test it by seeing the texture it gives me. Now I'm going to brush and stipple because I don't want this to be really heavily textured. I'm just because I'm going to come back on here then and I'm going to add crackle before I go to my next color. So I'll paint it on like this. Do it real quick just to give you an idea on what I do. So I paint it on. And then I decide, okay, where I want to put a little bit of texture at. I might even come back and do another coat because this isn't covering as well as I thought it was gonna. Or I can just put a little more sea spray in it. But this is just gonna be a base coat underneath, so. Okay, I'll mess with this and come back for the next step. So I put a coat of the sea spray and Hurricane Gray on, like I said. Some is brushed, some is stippled. And another good thing about the sea spray, when you use sea spray on a piece that has polyurethane, the sea spray gives it extra bonding so that it will stick even better than just plain chalk paint. So see there, I did some hatching. But anyway, now I'll let this dry, and then I'm going to come in here wherever there's crevices, and I'm going to put some black paint. There's a little tiny, I don't know if you can see it, I'm going to run some there. I'll put some around the handle, some in that, and here I'm going to put black and bring it in. So I'll show you how I do that after this dries. The first coat is all dry, it's done. So now I come in here and I put a little bit of paint on my brush, and then I offload it onto a plate because I don't want globs of it. And then I'm going to go in against and pull it towards the center. All around these edges. Just like that. The reason I drag it in towards the center is you want the darkest part to be in the crack. And then as it comes out, it wobbles. It blends, it disappears. But you're not going to really see this until I sand it back, because after this dries, now I'm going to come in there with crackle, and I'm going to put crackle different areas before I end up with the final vintage duck egg. I'm gonna so there you have the edges darkened on this. Now I'll turn it. I'll do every side. I'll do the same thing. Offload it onto your paper plate so it's not so thick. Drag it in to the center. Sorry, I have a cold. Drag it in. That corner just doesn't want to get paint in it. And I need the corners to have the darkest, because that's where you get all your buildup of dirt, dust. Okay, I'll go around the whole piece and do all this. I won't bore you with all of the video, so when I finish, I'll come back. All right, that's how I did the black. Anywhere there was a crevice, I put it in. I always put it around the hinges, because there you have a lot of dirt and buildup. I always do it around the handle, because you always got dirty hands open and shut, so you always have dirt accumulate there. But I did the black around all edges of where it drops down in, like corners, crevices. Now I'm going to wait till that dries, and I'm going to put on crackle. Now that's all dry, so now I'm going to start applying the crackle. When I put the crackle on, I'm just going to put thin layer down through like that. You don't have to cover it all. And how much crackle you put on, how thick you put on, determines how much cracking you're going to have. So like in spots where I want a lot of cracking, I'll put it heavier. So there. And I'll just do it sporadically, because you want it to look natural. Put it on a sturdier table. Okay, I want a lot of cracking right there. I want a lot of cracking around the hardware and the edges. And then just little tiny bits. Again, I want bigger crackles on the edges and do it around the whole piece at different areas so it's not uniform. It's all scattered, different cracks here and there. Same thing over here as I did on that side. Heavy crackle where I have it in the edges. And then go back and look at it because I see I got runs, so you got to gather up your runs. You don't want them sitting. You'll have to sand it back if you have any runs sitting. Okay. Now I'm going to let this dry before I put on my final top coat. The crackle's dry, so now I'm going to put my top coat on, which I'm going to vintage duck egg. So that's the one I went with. And when you have crackle, you have to be careful because you can only do one coat. So once you put it on, you can't go back, because once the crackle starts happening, you have to let it go and do its thing. So I just do one coat. So I'm going to do this whole thing in one coat of vintage duck egg. I applied one coat of the vintage duck egg. So let the cracking begin. And I'm happy with what I'm seeing. So far. It's dry now. So now I'm going to take it down to the barn. The only thing, I'm going to do some sanding, some light sanding back of the edges, bring out that French linen underneath, the textured. The only thing I wish I would have done was, you can see, okay, here I didn't add crackle, here I didn't add crackle, and here. So I wish I would have actually done a little less crackle, but that's okay. I mean, I can still work with it because till I get it sanded back, and then I'm gonna black wax, especially like the crevices and stuff. I'm gonna get black wax, but remember the black paint we have under there, so that's gonna shine through. And I think I'm gonna paint the inside black. I don't know, black or the finished duck egg, I don't know. So now it goes down to the barn. I'm going to do some sanding on it. Okay, so now I'm doing the black wax. And I'm going to take, this is the Le Petit brush, goes to a point so I can get it into the cracks. I want to put it into the edges like that, and on these edges. I'll do on these. So I'll do this to the whole piece, all around all the edges and then all the crevices before I come back and wipe it back. You can see how I did the edges. So that's what it looks like before I go in and rub it off. So I stayed on the edges. Now I'm going to come in and buff it with a cotton rag. All done. Now I'll let that sit because that black wax will take a little bit of time to cure because I have it on pretty heavy. But all finished.